Paul Smyth here is Director of Public Achievement, which has impressive experience dealing with young people and leadership development for young people. And I also want to add that I was quite impressed with the international network that you've established over the years. So Public Achievement apply cutting-edge technology. I mean, they're up to speed with all the social networking and the rest of it. They have a site called WIMPS, whereas my public servant, in which many politicians across all parties, including Alliance, have been interviewed, and you can watch the videos on the site. But I'll let Paul explain it more. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for giving up your lunch hour.
That's right.
And I'm much more interested in conversation than talking at people, so I'll just make some brief introductory remarks and then maybe we can get a bit of a chat going. The other reason for that is that I've actually had a flu all week, so my voice isn't as strong as it normally is. It was really interesting to hear Anne's story, even though I know Anne very well and I'm familiar with most of it, but you kind of forget sometimes how long we've been involved in this kind of work. For me, it was something I got involved in as a teenager. I was 13 when the Peace People started, and I got involved in their youth section, and at a very exciting time in terms of the conflict in Northern Ireland, very scary time, but there was a lot going on. And that experience really helped shape the rest of my life from that point onwards, because I was growing up in a working class Protestant area close to where I grew up. Actually, I was on Woodville Road, and was really not exposed to anything beyond the realities of that particular community. And my experience with these people didn't just give me the opportunity to meet people from other traditions in Northern Ireland and politicians and paramilitary members and so on, but also actually to be exposed to much of the rest of the world in terms of certainly the international profile that these people had in its earlier days, but also things like international youth camps and so on that I got involved in running, particularly in the Scandinavian countries, but other places as well. And I went from being a participant in their programs to being a volunteer, which was maybe for a year and turned into 3. And then I went back to college and eventually came back as head of Peace People's youth programs for about 6 years. And I think my interest has always really been around how young people engage with controversial issues, and how we help young people to kind of hang on to their optimism and critical thought. Because unfortunately, I think for a lot of people that disappears fairly quickly in Northern Ireland. And I've been reflecting over the last couple of days on this whole kind of notion of leadership. And my colleague Felipe here is from Spain, and she's with us for a year. And we were chatting in the car about whether or not the whole notion of leadership is a kind of male fixation.
Well, that's not a new one.
But we were talking about it, and I think it probably is. But I also think that we have to be careful about what we mean when we use the term leadership, because I think it's a term, like so many other terms in Northern Ireland, has become very sullied over the years, and also we've kind of got a bit of a leadership crisis. I think it's pretty obvious to everybody, and I don't think it's just because of the sectarian politic we have in Northern Ireland, although I think it's a very big part of it. But I also think it's about kind of an authoritarian model of leadership that isn't bringing us anywhere, and isn't encouraging us to talk about our weaknesses as well as our strengths, isn't encouraging us to find strengths in other people. It was at a brilliant presentation the other day by Aileen McGilligan, who's the only female permanent secretary in Northern Ireland. And something she said stuck with me, which was that her tactic was to surround herself with people who are more brilliant than she is. It's just no mean task if you're Aileen McGilligan. But it's actually a very mature position to take as a leader, to recognise that you actually need people who are better at stuff than you are, and let them do what they're good at. And I think until we start getting to that kind of leadership, we're in a bit of a predicament in Northern Ireland. But I want to talk a little bit more just about young people and how we engage young people in Northern Ireland. I've been pretty dismayed so far with the way that the Assembly has related to young people. And I know cross-party group on children and young people, and I think that's to be welcomed. But a lot of the statements that have come out of the Assembly, particularly in terms of teenagers, have been sort of moral panics. Classic one recently was a suggestion that young drivers have a curfew imposed on them. I wonder how many of us would put up with that when we've just got our driving licence and our hormones were running wild. But there have been all kinds of statements coming out of the Assembly that really are very impressive statements, and we have a very deterministic way of looking at young people in our society. We know that young people often grow up in very, very difficult contexts and situations, and then we're surprised when their outcomes are the things that we said that their outcomes probably would be. And we actually focus on the ones who come off the rails and get into trouble and cost our state and our system a lot of money. And we never actually look at the ones who succeed in spite of all the obstacles that they have to overcome. And actually that's where the real learning is. Because anybody who can grow up in a very difficult set of circumstances and make something significant in their lives really has a lot to teach the rest of us. Much more than people who come from a very affluent background. Not that everybody from an affluent background has an easy life, but certainly a lot of the young people we're working with in interface areas face obstacles that are really unacceptable in terms of things they expect young people to work through. To the point where recently in our work we've actually developed a whole new project area which the International Fund are supporting, called Away from Violence.